death in the family, I need to know, right? We'll make it work. But the best way is just to keep up with everything. So now, what am I going to do with this course? What do I expect you guys to get out of this, right? So here's my goals and objectives, right? One of the discussions I want to have is how technology changes over time and how to evaluate it. Why is that important to you? Every one of you is going to be in the budget fight. Every company, non-governmental agency, governmental agency, wherever you go to work, there's usually around October and every year there's an argument about who gets to spend what money in a company. One of the big discussions is who needs new computers and why. And you need to be able to weigh in cogently on that discussion, otherwise you'll get sold a set of fuel-ejected battery cables. I have a story to tell about myself, my youth, right? I was 16 years old and I bought a clunker, right? It was a car, right? And it got me to and from high school and did all those sorts of things. And, you know, being 16 years old with a car, you kind of feel like you're on top of the world, and it was great. I enjoyed the car. And then after I'd had it 3 or 4 months, it started making an awful sound. Wasn't running right, backfiring. And I go, geez. You know, so I tried to fix it myself and I made it worse. And so in desperation, I took it to a shop. And I took it in there and they had it up on the rack and they were looking around underneath it and they got a flashlight and all that kind of stuff. And I'm kind of pacing the waiting room like an expectant father, you know. And the guy comes in and goes, well, you knew that car was pretty old when you bought it, right? And I go, yeah, I did. And he says, you're going to need a set of fuel-injected battery cables and chromoly muffler bearings, and it's going to run to the tune of about $450. And I was like, oh God. I only spent $500 on the car, and he could have said $5 million. I didn't have it. So I said, I got to go talk to my dad. He said, well, you do that. You do that. You know, and then we'll work something out. If there need to be a payment schedule or something like that, we'll work it out. Well, I went and told my father, and he became livid. And the reason being is that there's no such thing as fuel-injected battery cables. There's no such thing as chrome moly muffler bearings. He was ripping me off. He was stealing from me. My dad became livid. And now the story gets good. To understand that, you kind of have to understand my dad. My dad, first of all, he played for the Chicago Bears, and he was 6'4". Any direction you chose to measure. He was a very large man. And he'd been in the Navy in World War II, and he could cuss in 3 languages besides English. And he was furious. And so he said, we're going down to that place. All right, this is good. So we drove down there, and he gave the guy every chance. He said, my son said that you looked at his car and that there was a problem with it. And I got to believe that he misunderstood what you said. Because he said he needed a set of fuel-injected battery cables and chrome moly muffler bearings, and we both know those don't exist. And the guy said, oh no, with these new modern cars, these new parts that they're coming out with every day, and and the discussion kind of devolved, and there was a discussion about the gentleman's parentage, his eating habits, and ended with a suggestion that was anatomically impossible. And we, because at that point the car wasn't running at all, so we hooked it up to the back of his truck. We towed it to a shop my father knew, and the guy looked at it and he said, okay. And I says, what's the problem? I said, well, this car is old. The distributor cap is all carboned up. I can replace your rotors, replace the distributor cap, and it'll run just like it was new. How much? $28. Get the difference? My dad was knowledgeable. He understood cars. I didn't. So they'll take the opportunity to take your money. Are there people out there in the information system world that'll take your money? Absolutely. So you need to understand the systems so that when the budget fight comes on, A, you don't get sold a bill of goods, and B, you get what you need, not what you want. So we want to talk And we also want to talk about how to use information technology to share data, particularly for teams, all right? Internally, externally, and internationally. We also want to talk about how to use information technology to retrieve and analyze data to make decisions in an ethical manner. We have a huge amount of information about people, and every company does. Their employees, their customers, that has to be safeguarded, used properly, and not abused. We want to talk about how to evaluate and organize information technology to support the company. And I want to talk a little bit about how information technology decisions impact society, because they do. There are serious implications to many different information technology discussions. Now, lots of folks at this point say, well, I'm never going to be a manager. I will make a statement that's proven true over the 17 years I've been teaching here. 5 years after graduation, half this class will be managers or supervisors. 10 years after this class graduates, everybody who wants to be will be a manager or supervisor. You're going to get there faster than you think. And you're going to be tasked with making decisions. And the people who get promoted are the people who make the decisions more correctly on a regular basis. All right. So I'm going to post all the lectures online, whether or not you're in class or not. For the in class, this is a bonus, right? If I say something that doesn't make sense, you want to review it, you can watch it. It will be that way for your use. You're assumed to be familiar with the UI policy regarding plagiarism. I want you to work together. I want you to cooperate. I don't want you to do each other's work, and there's a big difference. Now, I want you to come to class ready to learn, right? I've seen lots of people walk around on campus and they've got earbuds and they're listening to their music, and I'm cool. You can listen to any music you want. I'm a folk guitarist. I like just about, bits and pieces, just about every kind of music I've ever heard. And so, your music is for you. I'm in favor of that. When you come in this class, please take the earbuds out. You can't learn really well when you're listening to music and me talk. Something that will happen at least once during the semester is you're going to be wrapped up in one of the things we do in college, right? We give you more things than you can do and force you to learn how to prioritize. It's part of the learning activity. There's going to come a point where if you've got another course, if you're doing 2 courses this session, you're going to have an exam, have a quiz, something coming up the next semester or next period, and you're going to go, gosh, Mark made a big deal about being there on time, being there for attendance, but I got to study for this. Well, now you have to make a value judgment. Now you have to set some priorities. If you really feel that that's the way it's going to be, studying in here is the worst place you can study. I talk really loud, all right? You're not going to get good studying. So let me know what's going on. Make sure your assignments are turned in, and if you just absolutely have to do it, go someplace like the library or the coffee shop or your apartment or wherever it is you study best and do it there, okay? But you're not going to do yourself justice either in this class or the other one you're studying for if you try to do both at the same time. They talk about multitasking, all right? In my life, I've met one guy who could multitask, who could really multitask. He was one of my, there were 4 of us that lived in an apartment in college, and this guy, several times during the semester I wanted to strangle him. We were all engineering and science majors, and we were studying really hard. And he read comic books a lot, and he talked like Donald Duck. And he would get A's almost all the time. Well, he really could do 2 things at once. He could read a book and carry on a conversation. He could read a book and watch TV. I can't do that. I don't know anyone else that can. This guy is currently doing research in the Princeton Fusion Lab. He's way smarter than I am. So for all the rest of us schlubs, focusing on one thing will do better than trying to multitask. So don't study for another task. And because this is a 7:30 class, And because it's on a Monday morning, I feel obligated to remind people that while your activities outside of class are your affair, when you come into this room, it starts to impact other people. Now, let me set a scene for you. Most of the people in sound of my voice have never consumed an alcoholic beverage. But for those of you that have, I'd like you to think about something. Have you ever had the kind of hangover where your hair hurts and your skin is kind of green and sallow and your stomach, it's a volcano, it's just roiling over and over, and you smell bad? And every direction you move, you groan, it's painful, and your eyes burn. You got this headache that sounds like someone, playing the drums on your forehead. Okay, think about that kind of hangover. Now think about sitting next to a person with that kind of hangover, right? Are you impacting their learning ability? The answer is clearly yes, especially for the really aggressive hangovers. So pay attention to the details. I don't police what you do outside this classroom. It's not my affair. When you come to the classroom, be ready to answer the bell. Be focused, be healthy, be ready to do the thing you need to do. All right, so that's the syllabus, that's the course. There is a printed syllabus that you can have. It's available online. You can download it if you like. But now I'm going to talk about computer stuff. We're going to talk about how this stuff works. So, a quote that starts this one out, little lighten things up. The most overlooked advantage to owning a computer is if they foul up, there's no law against whacking them around a little. All right? Have you done that? Been upset and whacked a computer? I haven't done it this week, but it's only Monday. All right? And maybe I don't hit them anymore, but I have been known to cuss them out frequently. But they're just a tool. They're just a thing. All the mistakes that come out of computers are generated by people. So knowing more means there'll be less of them. So this first discussion, I want to be able to talk about the speed of change with computer hardware and software. And then I want to talk about the description of the components of a computer. Now do not panic. We will not be disassembling a computer in here and then reassembling it. I just want to talk about the basics so you know about the parts. And more importantly, what parts matter when you're trying to build a computer. That's important. Why? Because you're going to be in a supervisor, you're going to be a budget situation, and you're going to be required to get new computers. I mean, the cycle is every 3 or 4 years. What's a good computer, right? What do certain jobs need that other jobs don't need? Who needs a good video? Who needs good sound? Unfortunately, in some organizations, a high-quality computer is a status symbol. But that's a want, that's not a need. And sometimes your needs are different than your wants in that situation. So we want to be able to discuss where you can make trade-offs between performance and cost and still be able to do your job. All right? So let's talk about the roots of the computer. The first computer we know that existed is something called the Antikythera device. It was found on a Greek galleon, and they think it was somewhere between 100 and 200 BC. Okay, it was a clockwork mechanism, an analog computer designed to calculate the position of the star and the moons. And it worked, all right? And the level of craftsmanship that was shown with that device shown that it had been around a while, right? I mean, it certainly wasn't in mass production. They didn't have such a thing, but there were probably tens of them around. It was something that a navigator on a ship would want to have. Computers have been around a long time. We've had lots of devices to help us calculate things. But the modern computer, the digital computer, was the brainchild of Charles Babbage. He built primitive computers starting in the 1830s. But Charles Babbage was not the easiest person to work for. He, in his time developing computers, he went through 6 machinists. Machinists in the 1830s were well-paid, skilled craftsmen, and he abused them, and they left him. The thing that made his work successful was the contribution by Ada Lovelace. She was the first computer programmer. She wrote an algorithm, a computer program for the development of logarithms before there was a computer. She understood how a digital system would have to work. And she had another advantage. She was the daughter of Lord Byron. And he was very wealthy. And she was a bit of an embarrassment. In the era where women were supposed to get married, make a favorable alliance and that sort of thing, she studied mathematics. She studied art. She studied history. She was brilliant. And Charles Babbage was hired as her tutor. And together they built